Does Paul Ryan stepping aside make it more likely you're going to get even a more important job as chairman come the next Congress?
Well, I hope so. I think it's an indicator that our chances are very good to retake the majority. And, I don't know that there's going to be direct cause and effect, but I think it's symptomatic of what we're seeing, and that is an incredible energy for a change in the House of Representatives, I think, and in the Senate as well. A great deal of wind at our backs and a great deal of demoralization on the Republican side. So, I wish Paul well, and I certainly congratulate him for prioritizing his family. But I hope that we have the opportunity to choose his successor.
So, Congressman, we just had the opportunity to speak with one of your colleagues from the other side of the aisle, Chris Collins, and we asked him the same question. He said, oh, no, it has nothing to do with what happens in the House because they're all individual races, district by district. Why is he wrong?
I think he's wrong because I think the number one issue on the ballot this year is going to be Donald Trump. And that's what I hear from my constituents. That's what I hear all around Kentucky and southern Indiana, where I live, and not live in southern Indiana, but nearby. And so, yes, there's always a local aspect to any election, and it has to do with the personalities and the talents of the candidates. But in terms of issues, this is going to be a referendum on Donald Trump and his behavior. And so I think there's going to be much more of a national tint to this election than normally.
Talking about President Trump, his administration is planning to ask Congress for cuts in domestic programs that were passed by the spending bill. A rescission request could pass with a simple majority. Do you believe that this could be something that could happen, and what would Democrats do about it?
Well, obviously in the House, Republicans have more votes. So if they wanted to do that, they could do it. I know a lot of Republicans are very reluctant to do it because we crafted a very thoughtful, compromise spending proposal, and we Democrats, I didn't vote for it, but we Democrats provided enough votes to get it over the finish line. We have to pass another spending bill by September 30th or the government shuts down. If they renege on this deal, then you're not going to get much help from Democrats in the fall, and Republicans would then be responsible for shutting the government down just a few weeks before the election. I don't think they want that on their resume.
And today we had the vote on the balanced budget amendment after a major tax cut and also that $1.3 trillion spending bill. What was the significance of this vote?
Well, this is just a cheap political stunt. I likened it to the Menendez brothers pleading for mercy because they're orphans. The Republicans passed a tax cut, which the CBO said would increase the national debt by about $2 trillion over the next 10 years. And all of a sudden now they're screaming for a balanced budget. And let me tell you the impact of this potential balanced budget. Right now, if we were forced to have a balanced budget in this year, it would result in $800 billion worth of cuts, which means $800 billion leaves the economy. You're talking about a 4% of GDP disappearing. It would be devastating economically. It would cost millions of jobs. It would put incredible strain on state and local governments. This constitutional amendment would never pass, primarily for that reason. States understand how devastating it would be to them. So, all they're trying to do is cover their rear ends because they feel very, very on the defensive about passing a massive tax cut, mostly for the wealthiest Americans and corporations, and trying to defend that when it's going to ramp the deficit up.
That might be a cheap political stunt, but what's not cheap is the budget. And we do have some very serious deficits we're facing. If you were to take over as chairman, let's go back to that possibility. Would you put it as a priority to address the growing deficit in this country, and what would you do about it?
We absolutely have to. We've been saying for years, I've been on the budget committee now for almost 10 years, and we've been saying there are ways to get at this. I mean, there's $1 trillion a year in tax expenditures in the budget. A lot of them don't provide any societal benefit. We've got a lot of structural issues in the healthcare system that we could address that would dramatically lower costs of healthcare. taking on prescription drug prices for one. We tried to do that when we were in the majority, actually allowing Medicare to negotiate prices with the drug companies. They're not by law allowed to do that. So, you can look at it two ways. You can say that we can just cut, but we can also make some very fundamental policy decisions that could have a very positive impact on the deficit.
So finally, Congressman, one of the things that people don't talk about, but there's the little secret out there, which is entitlements. I mean, all these deficits we're talking about are really bad. We've got some entitlement deficits coming up that are really going to crush, if not us, our children, our grandchildren. Are Democrats prepared to talk about fundamental reform in entitlements?
Well, that's what I've just talked about. Again, there's a cost issue with all of these, with Medicaid and Medicare, which are the two biggest programs that are mandatory spending. The mandatory spending issue is also is basically a question of demographics. I mean, we have an aging population. We have 10,000 seniors turning 65 every day. This is increasing the cost of Medicare. Obviously, the Social Security benefits are increased. We can't do anything about the demographics, so we have to deal with structures. And again, I think there are a lot of things, particularly on the healthcare side, we can do to lower costs, and that's where we need to be focused.